and welcome to Rock Paper Shotgun. My name is Matthew Castle, and no, we haven't pivoted to PlayStation. What you're seeing here is a former PlayStation 4 exclusive, Horizon Zero Dawn, running on the PC, where it rightfully belongs. Guerrilla Games' open-world action game has made the jump to PC, and my fellow vidbud Colm and Matthew has been playing it over the last few days, so he's going to answer some of my burning questions on how the port holds up.
We'll also chat about the game in a wider sense, but I know people want to hear all about the frame rates, Matthew.
Yeah, so I'm going to expect you to do your very best impression of Digital Foundry as we get into our Horizon Zero Dawn review. So before we chat about the game itself, let's talk about Horizon Zero Dawn's performance on PC. I'm guessing the answer is yes, but is this the best version of the game?
Naturally enough, you have greater control over how the game performs than you do on either PS4 or PS4 Pro. Even on the beefier PlayStation, you have to choose between 1080-60 or 4K30. Here, you can go for that magic 4K 60 if you like, but if you have the rig for it, you can push it even further by going for an unlimited frame rate, Matthew.
Ooh.
Basically, you can customize it to your wants and your needs. And of course, the same goes for how the world looks, the shadows, the clouds, the textures. I'd imagine it goes without saying, but in the interest of clarity, and to not be rude and to answer your initial question.
Thank you.
If you want the prettiest and smoothest version of Horizon Zero Dawn, then you want to get it on PC. It's still Horizon Zero Dawn.
Right.
A robot crocodile 3 years ago is going to be a robot crocodile now.
Right.
But at the same time, yes, it looks a bit smoother and a bit nicer and a bit prettier.
Okay, I guess it wasn't like an ugly game that has become a swan. It's a swan that's become like a slightly bigger, better swan.
A peacocky swan. Maybe if a peacock and a swan had a child.
Oh shit, a swan that becomes a peacock. What a nightmare.
But with all that praise, I do have a couple of caveats. The game has an ultra-wide mode for those people with the fat monitors, and while in-game, this is fantastic. It looks terrific. It's very hard to show you this on a 1440p YouTube video, but I hope you get the gist from what you're looking at. But one little snag with this is that the menus and the cutscenes haven't been tweaked for ultra-wide.
Right.
So what developer Guerrilla Games has done, you can see it here, is they've used a pillar box effect. It's like they've duplicated the image, stuck it behind, and stretched it and maybe faded it a tad as well.
Right.
It looks okay sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I was watching Catherine test Horizon on the ultra-wide, and the landscapes look amazing, but it is a little jarring. Anything which is a cutscene, it suddenly shrinks in. One
area that I have to applaud Guerrilla Games on is the mouse and keyboard support.
Mm-hmm.
You can tinker with the mapping if you like, but I don't think you really need to. The game has been mapped quite well. Movement in combat feels surprisingly natural if this is the way you want to experience the game. Now, I say that, but listen, the optimal way to play this is with the controller. There's no question about that. But if you don't have that option, or you'd prefer to play it without an Xbox pad, you can, and playing with mouse and keyboard, it feels rather good.
Yeah, I can imagine it being an alright fit, because obviously the mouse aiming, that always helps, shooting these tiny little weak spots and things, but it's not like Aloy isn't the most athletic of characters, because where I often struggle with third-person games on mouse and keyboard is sometimes like the speed of movement or the grace of third-person movement isn't quite where I want it, but I can sort of see how it would work quite well in this.
But with all that said, it would be remiss of me not to talk about the little hiccups I had as well.
Ooh, okay.
The game crashed on me a couple of times, basically enough that it's worth mentioning in this review. And I definitely had a few frame rate drops at points as well. I've chatted to hardware editor Catherine, and she didn't run into any issues, but we did get word from RPR that my problems weren't completely isolated. I don't have a NASA computer, but I do definitely meet the requirements. So it was a little disheartening when I ran into the issues that I did run into. But that shouldn't affect you, person watching this, because there is a day one patch that's being rolled out before launch addressing tech snafus. So we'll pin further thoughts in the comments when we have them. All in all, like when it's firing on all cylinders, it looked gorgeous, it ran superbly. This patch that I'm mentioning, it should iron out the kinks. If you want to know more about how this performs on PC, you should check out Catherine's breakdown over on rockpapershotgun.com. I'll stick a link in the description.
On top of unlimited frame rates and the ultra-wide mode, have they tweaked the game world too? Is that right?
They have a little, yeah. Sort of related to them tweaking the game world, and one of my favourite new options in the game. And look, I know this isn't breaking new ground on PC, but you can fiddle with the field of view, which allows you to then see more of this gorgeous world that Aloy is in.
Oh, that's good. I always found she was a bit big in the original. She's got a massive head as well.
She does.
When she's a child in this game, she's like one of those nodding head things that you get on the dashboard of a car.
The little bobbleheads.
Her head is huge.
I played this at the widest field of view, and just out of curiosity I booted up the PS4 version to have a look, and it feels so claustrophobic seeing this large-headed woman. Well, I don't know, does she have a large head? Is the cameraman breaking social distancing guidelines? I don't know.
We just don't know.
But with the wider shot, as well as seeing, you know, this gorgeous world, you can see the improvements as well, like dynamic foliage, Matthew.
Ooh, now you're talking my kind of language.
Leaves that dance around your body, reacting to your movement. It's hypnotic. And there's improved reflections as well, so you can recreate that bit in The Lion King where Simba sees the ghost of Mufasa in the water. Very exciting. But in real person speak, what this amounts to is an already lovely looking world becoming even lovelier. It doesn't look like an entirely different game or anything, it just looks better than the original. There were certainly some odd occurrences though. Again, a couple of little snafus, as I say, particularly in the conversational bits. At one point I was talking to a little blonde boy and his hair was moving independently, as if it were possessed.
Maybe it is. How well do you know your Horizon lore?
Well, how do you explain the other characters who had clothes that moved independently?
That's the man with magic jeans.
But in action, it really is a gorgeous looking post-apocalypse.
Enough about how nice it looks. PC players have been waiting 3 years to murder some giant machine dinosaurs with a bow and arrow. So what is that like?
The bow and arrow is pretty good, I'm happy to report. But there is more to Horizon's weaponry than just a bow and arrow. Throughout the entirety of the game, you will be accruing a real arsenal of different kinds of weapons, and during combat you'll be switching back and forth. From your tripcaster, which allows you to place a little tripwire across the ground that can shock enemies, to your sling, which allows you to fling elemental bombs at baddies, because you do have to take different strategies when it comes to the monsters you're coming up against. You can kind of liken these robot dinosaurs to Pokemon, in a sense.
Really?
Well, you'll manage to kill Pikachu, or whatever you do in Pokemon, not kill them, but
no, enslave them.
Yes.
It's much nicer.
You'll be able to enslave Pikachu if you jolt Pikachu with electricity. It might take a little while longer than using ground attacks, but you'll still be able to do it. And it's the same in Horizon. The Shell Walker, which is the giant enemy crab thing, the Shell Walker's strengths are shock attacks. So while you'll be able to destroy it whilst also using shock bombs or whatever, it'll take a little while longer than perhaps if you used, say, blast bombs.
Sure, that makes sense.
Basically from like your snap maws to your scrappers to your whatever, the big machines are weak to certain attacks and stronger against others. And each one has weak points too, like you mentioned when we're talking about mouse and keyboard. So you have to think on the fly. You know, there are very few waist-high walls here. It's all about sticking and moving, and it genuinely makes for some thrilling fights.
What about the people? It's not just dinosaurs, right?
Well, that's where it falls a little bit. They're just not as interesting. They're adequate.
That's fantastic. What a thrill.
They're just a bit boring. But the action-packed battles against machines, they're terrific. It's a real proper sense of achievement as well when you outsmart and outlast these machines, particularly some of the bigger, later game ones.
So, I know one area of the game that you're particularly taken by is the lead character Aloy and her story and her massive head.
Yes, indeed I am. I think she's a great character. She feels real. Well, as real as anyone can be when they're in a post-apocalyptic world fighting off big robot dinosaurs. But it's the delivery of actress Ashley Birch that makes Aloy come alive mainly. And I know it's quite a reality TV line to say, but she does legitimately go on a journey over the course of the game. She acts as the perfect avatar for the player, because whilst you're discovering everything in this world, Aloy is too. It's just lovely synergy in that, Matthew.
Very nice.
I think that's where the connection between player and protagonist could have ended, but for some reason, Guerrilla Games included dialogue options. They gave you some agency over Aloy. I suppose the game embraces RPG elements elsewhere, like upgradable outfits and weapons and crafting, etc. But including this, the dialogue options bit, it's just a bit odd. These moments provide you with 3 different responses, these conversations, and they mean absolutely nothing. They pop up sporadically and they just have no bearing on anything. They're just unnecessary. I don't understand including these. It's really, really odd. Again, because of how well realised Aloy is. She begins life as this naive young girl outcast from her tribe, but she ends up, and don't worry, I won't spoil anything if you haven't played it before, but she ends up becoming this courageous warrior. Sort of like me, Matthew, actually. I'm a bit of a courageous warrior, I like to think.
The big question then is, are you a courageous warrior that enjoys the occasional bit of busy work? Because I believe Horizon Zero Dawn has quite a bit of map clearing and icon finding.
It does indeed, and a lot of it is very samey. So firstly, the side quests. These revolve around speaking to someone who often says one of 2 things. Hello stranger, I've lost a particular object. Can you retrieve it for me? Or, hello stranger, I've lost my son, daughter, lover, whatever. Can you find them for me, please? It's just the same thing over and over again. So don't expect any sort of bloody baron in this. I suppose, for all intents and purposes, this is a Sony-published Ubisoft game.
Right.
You climb large giraffes and then eagle sync at the top to open up more of the map. Assassin's Creed. You can carry more resources once you've crafted larger pouches using the skin and bones of wildlife that you can hunt. Far Cry. Some of these things are quite enjoyable, like the giraffe towers. There's a little bit more to them than just pushing forward on the analog stick or holding down on the W key. It just feels like we've been here countless times before. And that goes for every non-critical icon on the map. If a side mission involves taking down a huge beast, then it'll be fun, because that's one of the best parts of the game. But there's no escaping the grindy feeling of it all. The mediocrity of the optional missions was disappointing in 2017 when the game first launched on PS4, and it's no different in 2020.
With that in mind, do you think Horizon Zero Dawn is still worth checking out if you missed it the first time?
I do. It's not going to change the way you think about video games or anything. A lot of what Horizon does, you've seen loads of times before. But there's enough variety in your weapons and the big robots you destroy with said weapons, and it looks gorgeous as well on PC. There's enough of that to keep you entertained over the course of the game.
Well, that sounds lovely. And if you are excited to murder some robotic machines, you'll be able to pick up Horizon Zero Dawn Complete Edition on PC from Friday the 7th of August. Thank you very much for chatting with me today, Colm.
No problem at all, Matthew.
And please do let us know if you'll be picking up Horizon or if you're excited to see more console exclusives betray their original audiences and make the jump to PC where they can have a big old graphics party. And if you enjoyed this video, it would be lovely if you gave it a thumbs up. If you're looking for some classic rock, paper, shotgun goodness, you can watch either of the two videos on screen right now. And of course, if you want to make sure you never miss any RPS videos in the future, just hit subscribe and ring the notification bell. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll say bye for now. Goodbye.